Y'all, when I tell you Tamika's face and hair is the level of exhaustion that I was at with this back and forth between Zadia and Shareese on this reunion piece about who's the real Regina George. Y'all, let's get into the finale slash beginning part reunion of Ready to Love, Make a Move. Okay, so y'all know how I do my reunion. So you know we've been cutting up all season long. And these reviews and these comments, honey, talking about these wigs and this glaze and these outfits. So let's talk about the fashion. Now, I have to say, all in all, y'all, for the most part, as much as we joked, especially as I joked in the season about the ladies' different looks and outfits, for the most part, I did like what everybody had on. I think the ladies most of the time look fabulous. It's very difficult to pack for the level of heat that Nola can bring, honey. So I was actually pretty proud of most of the outfits they put together. They looked very cute. The majority of them are in shape and look great in their outfits. So I really wasn't mad at it. We had some fashion faux pas and we had some questionable hairstyles and hairdos, but for the most part, the ladies really turned it out. When it comes to favorite looks, I feel like, for me, it was pretty much Venetia and Shareese that gave me my favorite looks of the season. But I had some real serious, like, these are my favorite looks on everybody. So for me, it was Venetia on the very first day when they met all of the men and they came out. I loved that red dress she had on, y'all. She looked amazing. I loved her hair. And, they were really adjusting to the weather. So this was a great first impressions look. It looked great. It fit her body well. Her hair was banging. Venetia's a professional hairdresser, honey. So she had to put it together. And for the most part throughout the season, her hair looked fantastic. But she was one of my favorite dress this year. I really just think she embraces her shape and understands what fits her curves, and that's great. Next up was our girl Zadia, who gave us a different personality and a different person every week. And, we didn't know who we were going to get in terms of the wig or the outfits, honey. I didn't know Zadia sometimes was trying out for a TLC reunion video or whether or not we were going to be getting sophisticated Zadia. She kept us guessing. And I absolutely loved a lot of the looks that she wore on the couch and some of the looks that she had on the outside. But there was a favorite for me, and it was this purple number with Zadia. I thought she looked so beautiful here. I loved her dress. I loved the way it fit her body and her shape. Zadia is in great shape. She has beautiful arms. So it was nice to see that. She had beautiful earrings and accessories went with it. The hair looked fantastic. It wasn't that blonde wig, and we were so happy to see it. Next up was our girl Shareese, and I had feelings about how Shareese looked in the season, and specifically, sometimes I felt like, Shareese is the esthetician. I'm thinking that she's done the Botox thing sometimes, and I think sometimes it's a little bit harsh on the face. I know she's a little bit older, and I'm not shading any type of enhancements people do to themselves in any capacity, honey. But I just feel like sometimes it can give her a harsh look, and so there were some moments in this season where I felt like it was nice to see a little bit of a softness to her. I definitely think that different hairstyles outside of that, I think that wavy clip hairstyle made her look really, really soft and beautiful. And Shareese is in great shape as well. Skin looks great. And I loved a lot of her outfits. Like I said, her and Venetia were my favorite dress for the season. But this number on the very first day with Shareese was a fave for me. Absolutely loved it. Hit the body right, let you show, hey, look, if you're in the 40s or your 50s, honey, you can still look fly and good. Do not try to play the game. And Shareese did very well. I loved a lot of the pieces she wore this season. And lastly was our girl, Ashley. Now, I know I was joking for a lot of the season. Ashley definitely popped out. What I love most about this outfit, honestly, is that she don't have that white necklace on. But Ashley looks stunning. And this, unfortunately, was not on the show. This was part of the promo shots that they took for the show. But she looked amazing in this dress. It hugged every right curve. Her skin was glowing and popping. The shoes were fantastic. The earrings were great. I honestly wish a lot of this translated over. Now, what I did love about Ashley in the season was Ashley really gave us back the jumper and the romper in a really cute and fun way. I like that she had a lot of sets and not just dresses. And that was really nice to see because it gave a reality to when she had to do athletic things and also just to give a little funness to the season. And a lot of times people don't always love wearing dresses and splits and have high, high hemlines and stuff like that. So it was nice to see somebody kind of bring some fun back in the jumpsuits and the rompers. And Ashley definitely did that this season. But I did not love a lot of the dresses. I just feel like they looked a little bit on the cheaper side. And I know we all at Pretty Little Things and Fashion Nova, but there's some things you could comb through, honey, and find. And I really want to actually get rid of that candy necklace. And she refused to do so. It is her own personal style. We know we love her to death, but these looks, I think, complimented the ladies the most. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Now let's get into these reunion looks. You know, the reunion is part of this episode 12. It's a mixed mash of those two things. So we got our girl Venetia in the all black number. I really like the dress on her, but I don't love where the opening is for the bust. I just feel like it's showing too much to me. And the way it cuts, the angle is so awkward on her chest. I don't think it's about like her showing her bust so much as that where the dress hits at, it just kind of takes away from the spectacularness that's going on. You know how I feel like less is more in terms of like enhancements on a dress. Like if you have like a pop sleeve or you have, you know, your arms open or you have any type of detail to the dress. I feel like the more things that are going on with a dress, the less special it becomes. And I really wish that maybe it was just a different cut at the top so we could focus on that and this like, you know, cool kind of funky 80s ponytail she has going on. So I actually love her hair and makeup always looks great, but I really wish we could have seen something a little bit different. Moving on to our girl Zadia, love the color on her. Love the bob. I absolutely hated the dress. I just feel like this dress has been overworn by a million people at this point. This styling gives prom more than it gives like reunion for like an adult woman. I did not love this look at all. Zadia is a beautiful girl and can pretty much wear whatever. I just wish she would have picked a different look. But I do love the color. I think the chocolate brown, not even chocolate brown, it's kind of like a lighter brown than that. I love like the little highlights of the brown in her hair. It complements her skin tone really well. And she looked beautiful, but I just really hated the color. I did not care for Ashley's dress and I do not like the headpiece. Again, I just feel like it gives off, you know, and Ashley's extra. She's dramatic. So we're going to expect that kind of look from her. But I really want that style to step up a little bit more. But, you know, our personal style is our own. I just really didn't care for the dress that much, but I hated the headpiece even more because she does have this beautiful, short, natural. And I know she wanted to do something different. Maybe something more with the makeup would have been great, or even something with the shortcut, maybe with some embellishments of something else, but not that headpiece. It kind of gave a weird French church lady. I didn't know what was going on. So I didn't love it. And then we finally have Shareese. I love the dress on Shareese. It fits well. It looks nice. It does look good in white, but it gives bridal a little bit. The split definitely gives Risky Bride, but it gives bridal too much for me. And I feel like Shareese looked great in color this season. I would have loved to have seen her in a piece of color and not just the white. The white was kind of plain to me. And the hair was, you know, it was regular. So I would have liked Shareese to step it up a little bit more because we know that she can. But yeah, let me know what y'all think about the reunion looks in the comments. And let's move on to the actual episode. Hey, Question Crew. So you know we are back. Let's focus on this actual show now, child. So, you know, ladies are doing one last toast to the BS, honey. One last toast to the drama, all of the issues they've been going through this season. And tonight is about choosing their keeper for the last time. So, you know, Donald's the first one up, honey, and he comes to the door and Tamika answers the door. And I would just say this, honey. Tamika is a beautiful woman. When I tell you she is awkward as hell, and I feel like it's because she's tall, and as a tall person, I completely understand that. But she's so damn gangly, it's hilarious. And y'all know how I feel about this whole wig with the no earrings and the dress. It feel like she really just rushed to get here, and this was the last thing on her mind. Everything about her wig is just killing me. It's very much giving I like my box of wine. That had me weak, honey. I'm serious. It's just Tamika's vibe throughout this entire time is very much like this is the last thing on my mind. It's like, hey, I really don't have time for this, but I'll show up. But the wig is so parochial and suburban. It's giving mommy likes a glass of wine after she picks up the kids from soccer practice. It's giving I'm I'm not a regular mom, I'm a cool mom. So next we have Cam's arrival, and he of course shows up with that open shirt, child, walking and talking about nonsense that we do not care about in relationship to him and Zadia. And currently he's on this vibe of saying that he enjoys the feeling that they've had and he wants to continue it. Sir, it sounds like you've been trying to exit ever since the situation has been going down, and nobody really wants to be the bad guy. So I feel like it's a weird thing, and it's awkward how they were talking with Zadia about the decision that she had to make tonight, because she's saying, like, she doesn't want to be in this space where, if she makes this decision and she decides to stay with him, it could be something different. And I'm just like, this is getting more and more delusional. But let's move on. Tabari shows up next, honey, and he really is excited to see Venetia and everything that they could be. And when I tell you that man like a runaway groom, somebody get him a steamer. Eric Adams, he need to borrow your iron, child. Tabari dress is nice. That's not the issue. But honey, when I tell you this outfit was just crumply rumply, I didn't know what was going on. So first up is Shareese and Maurice, honey. And Shareese is out here letting us know that she is making her decision tonight as to whether or not she's going to be choosing Eric Adams again, honey, because I don't think the city of New York will. And Shareese and Eric go into this back room because that's pretty much where everybody's going to make their decision. And they sit on the couch, and she immediately says, like, how do you feel about us? And he says that he feels pretty good about them. He likes where they are, honey. And he put his hand on her thigh, very much like, let's let you know, you are my lady. That's all that was vibing in my mind when I was saying that. I was like, everything about him always gives corny Billy D, but I really have appreciated how he's grown in the relationship. But Shareese is not completely convinced, honey, because she said her life is in Miami and she's not really ready to interrupt that really quickly, especially for something that she's not sure will actually continue once she leaves. As we know from the beginning of the season, Shareese has stated that she's been in several over the last couple of years long distance relationships that did not work because the guys' energy changed once they were no longer around each other every single day. And that's been a concern for many of the women on the show. She's worried about the distance and, it's bothering her that this could go really left. But I have to say, this is a part of the conversation that I just kind of found to be a bit silly. And not so much with Shareese, but the purpose of this show in a lot of ways. I feel like it feels weird to, in maybe 6 weeks, which I think is how long they were really here, to like decide that this person and you need to have it all figured out in that way. It kind of feels a little silly. I mean, it also feels dumb to me because you're on a show where you literally uprooted your life at least for the next couple of weeks or with a month or 2 months to shoot this thing where you had nothing going on before. So it's not that much of a risk that you're taking with somebody if you're gonna go back home and not sure if they're gonna talk like that. Because honestly, you had nothing going on if you were able to come on the show. So to me, it's like, what is the real risk in you continuing to at least have a connection somewhat and see if it's working once you separate, than to like be completely devastated by it because you only knew this person for a couple of weeks. And to be honest, no person, and no man on the show certainly, but no woman in general still can offer that it's going to work out. You and him could be talking for another solid month and he's doing everything he did before, and something happens one day and it doesn't work out. So I'm not really sure how the conversation around the idea that once she leaves it's going to end, unless you're saying immediately it's not going to be cool the way Joel did Vernisha. But honestly, you can't promise that to anybody, and neither can he, although he is trying. And so Maurice says that, he feels like they have a good thing. He don't plan on going nowhere, whether it's long distance or not. He want to keep this thing moving. And at this point, he seems to be doing everything that he needs to do to sort of work it out with them. He tries to soothe her in saying that, his vibe hasn't changed with her. He really is happy that that she's in his life and he's genuinely digging her. And I think Maurice hopefully is at that age where he's grown and passed a lot of the games, especially because he was married previously. Honey, that's enough for Shareese. She heard what she had to hear. He said the things he needed to say, and she decides to keep him. And Maurice seems excited, honey. And they head on out to talk to everybody else. Tamika asked them how they feel about the situation. And even during their conversation when they were away from everybody, Ashley is sort of leaning into the doorway. And that seems to be a recurring theme with her throughout the night, trying to listen in and really can't hear anything. But Tamika said that she had a little bit of psychic ability, not time to put on earrings, but psychic ability to think that they were going to work out. And apparently they are going to. So Eric says, let's run this thing up and I have no problem going to Miami. Let's go ahead and set this city on fire. And the fact that he's been doing that in New York so much is apropos. So I like them together, and Shareese chose him. So next time we got our girl Venetia and all that cleavage, honey, and Tabari, aka Tigger. And Tigger says that, he couldn't be more happy to lock this thing down with Venetia. He feels like this is his lady. And he's just excited to see what she's going to be feeling, but it is a little bit nerve-wracking. And I feel like Venetia, for the most part, is feeling his vibe, but she does say that she enjoys Tabari. She enjoys his company. She thinks he's great on dates. There's a lot of positivity about him, but she's still faced with the same issue. And finally, the night is put to rest what it is, honey, because I couldn't really tell if she was saying that he still wasn't communicating or what was really going on. And that's what she essentially says. She says that her reservations about him are the same because even though he's extremely kind, even though they have things in common, he just does not effectively communicate, and it's not enough for her. She basically says that when they're together, he's in her face, he's in full mode with her, they're on the same vibe, but he does not communicate when they are apart. And if this is happening when we are in New Orleans, I can't imagine what the situation may be. She says that she feels like he runs into himself a lot. He's doing a lot in New Orleans and Mississippi. We know he's an entrepreneur, multiple family businesses and things going on. Plus, he has a daughter in Mississippi and Gulfport, and she lives in Houston. And I don't know how that is going to work out if we are all over the place, and specifically if you are jumping from pillow to post and you refuse to even post a text to me in the meantime. So her main issue with him, and we finally got clarity on it, was the communication that she discussed last week and the fact that he just not as effective in conversing with her. And I have to say, on this, I understand where Venetia is coming from, because we talked about the fact that if you are in something long distance, the communication has to be solid, and you have to be A1 on the fact that you're consistent with it. That person does not physically get to see you. So all we have is the phone. All we have is FaceTime. All we have is, conversations between me and you where we're not present. And it's almost the only thing you have to cling to till you see that person again. So it's really important that that's a steady vibe. And when it's not, it really can mess with your energy when you really care about somebody. So I absolutely understood what it is. And I don't understand how Tabari is just not getting it. If I can't get that verbal communication, that confirmation, that validation, what are we doing? And that's exactly what Venetia basically says. So, they go to a dramatic close. We come back from the commercial break, and Venetia says that she will be going to Houston alone. And when I tell you, honey, that last part when she said, "I wish you well," that's a killer stroke right there. Whenever you say that, "I wish you well," it's very much in the vibes of be blessed. So she said, "I wish you well on your journey to love." And honey, I know that hit Tabari hard. When I tell you Tigger took a moment to process that, that tie loosened up a little bit. Why is he dressed like one of the Blues Brothers? I don't understand. Somebody tell me what was the thought process in this outfit. Anyway, she basically says, Tabari says, this was hard for him. It's going to take a minute, because she asked him if he's okay. Sir, it's going to take you a minute to process this, but it also takes you a minute to send a text message, and you can't seem to do that with this woman. So why are you surprised? And that's also what bothers Venetia in this moment. It's like, why are you surprised that this is happening? Now, y'all, we got to take a pause for the course, because the shenanigans that were happening in the outside door were just as interesting as what was happening on the inside. So, everybody else is pretty much waiting essentially in the parlor to go into the room, but also to see what's going to happen with these other couples. And, Ashley been running to that door every 5 minutes to try to be nosy and listen in. But what was so funny about this moment is that when they walked out, you could tell they was being nosy. So Tamika quickly turns around, and then Donald is staring at the camera because he's staring at the door, probably because Ashley was over there interpreting what was going on. And he immediately turns away and goes, "Oh, snap." And Ashley tells him, "Look away, look away." It had me cracking up. She's like, "Do not look at the door." So it's very much reminds you of like when you're seeing another child, like when you were a kid and your mom was scolding you because you saw some other kid getting in trouble with their parents. That the parents and the altercation got louder, and you started staring, and your parent was like, "Look away, mind your business." Keep your eyes on your own paper, sir. Because when I tell you, it was astounding because Venetia walks out, but Tabari is still sitting there. So, child, when I tell you the Negro was too stunned to speak. So Tabari is sitting on the couch, And he is still trying to process this breakup. Venetia done walked out of the room, honey, and she starts to say that she doesn't understand why he hasn't followed her. In fact, she walked to the door and he's not behind her. She doesn't understand. She said, "You can't be that shocked, sir. You know you were not contacting me in between these dates." Or at least enough for what she wanted. And that's another thing about the clarity of this. I really feel like hopefully, because we end up finding out is this is not the full thing. Hopefully we find out next week what exactly the communication issue was. Was he never saying anything to her at all between their dates? Or was he just not texting her at a frequency level she would like? I just need more understanding. What I need from you is understand. Girl, why am I out here singing? Y'all know it's gonna be me and Candy and nobody else. Cause anyway. So it's not a 180 turn, but it feels like a little bit of a 90 right, because Tabari starts to tell us in the camera, like, wait a minute, it ain't just me. So I was like, sir, do tell. So he begins to explain that it is hard to understand the communication process that somebody wants when they're also not communicating effectively. Oh, not you saying Venetia's also the problem. And he basically says that it's hard to communicate with somebody who has their walls up when it comes to the situation and also is not being very open. So Tabari is letting y'all know, like, look, it ain't just me. I'm not the only person in here that got some problems. But he eventually gets up. I don't know if production insisted or whatever, because Venetia's like wait at the door to escort him out. And he gets up, he walks to the door. I thought he was gonna walk past her and not say nothing because he was giving that vibe, but he kind of turns and shakes his head and walks out. I didn't know what was gonna happen in that moment. It was tense, it was uncomfortable. I really thought he was gonna be rolling past her and not say a damn thing. So Venetia comes back to the group and she basically says she had to do what she had to do. Everybody's like, yes, sis, we really feel bad. And she's like, yeah. She said it was never gonna work. She says that, if she had chosen him, it was going to be, she can't stand the idea that she would have been in another failed relationship, and that their relationship wouldn't have stood the test of time. She said that she doesn't settle, she'll never settle, and she didn't settle, and she won't settle now. And I was like, okay, we got your little, Oprah empowering moment, although she did settle for Joel and his rapping. But either way, she's learned from that. At least she feels like she has. The ladies rally around her. They give her a powwow hug. And ain't it great to be in the sisterhood? Let's move. So next we move on to Zadia and Cam, or what I would say was my song interpretation of How Did You Get Here? Because why are we still here with them? So Zadia's up next. She says her and Cam should go into the room. They need to have a talk. This has happened several times on the show. How many times have these men sitting in this pink couch? Who was cleaning this pink couch? I don't know. I have question mark. Like what's going on? Do they have a housekeeper every week? We need to know the background scenes. Let's show behind the scenes. So it's time for her to make a decision. Girl, Cam really made a decision for both of y'all multiple times over this season, but it's the refusal to believe it. It's the delusional for me. But at least she's delusional looking beautiful, because I love Zadia's outfit in this moment. I think she could have did more with her makeup or her dress, giving, teal blue Marilyn Monroe vibes. Zadia looked great. I love the hair. I just hate the delusional energy. But she heads it in. It's closed. Once they close the door, of course, Ashley runs back to the door to try to listen again. And Tamika's like, get away from there. So they start having a conversation outside the room before we go inside to see what's going on with Zadia and Cam. And it's the ladies, and they're having a conversation about what they think she's going to do. And Venetia, being her resident homegirl, basically says that she does not know what Zadia is going to do. She's seen her sort of flip-flop around in feelings that she's had internally and externally about Cam. And she's really wrestling with a lot. And, Zadia is, back and forth with how she feels about the situation. So they go back inside the room, and Zadia basically says that, she's been happy that she's chosen Cam multiple times and over. She likes that they've come a long way. Cam says he also feels like he's seeing growth in their relationship in ways that he didn't think on both ends with them. And he likes the fact that Zadia has been very patient and open with him. She said that she appreciates his transparency, but in that transparency has also been the thing that's been plaguing her. Basically, he's been telling her the entire time, I have no time for you. I have no time for this. But I don't know how that's turning into, I want to love you for the rest of my life with Zadia in her mind, but that's where it is. And to be honest, I don't completely left Cam off of the hook with this, because you could also just leave the process, sir. Nobody is forcing you to stay on this show. I feel like she talks with him, but there is a reluctance in how she's speaking to him. She says all of the things about them is what she really enjoys, how he makes her feel, how he appreciates her, how he understands her. She feels like he's shown up for her, although be it late sometimes with a gift bag. He's been there, and that's enough for her to sustain with. And she basically tells him that she chooses him. We feel reluctant about it. We know Zadia feel reluctant about it, but honey, but she ain't choosing to go home empty-handed. So she walks out the door, and her and Cam are a match. Tamika seems excited, but the other ladies are not believing the story. And that includes Shareese and Venetia. So when they walk out, Venetia's face very much gave like, girl, what the hell? And Shareese is the person that they go to ask what she thought about the situation. And Venetia, Shareese basically says that she feels like Zadia is compromising. She feels like she's compromised throughout the season with Cam. And she's compromising now not to look weird for hanging on this long. So, child, our girl Ashley is next up, and she is asking for a pep talk from the ladies before she go in there, honey. She needs to get her plans together. She needs to get her little fight song together, and she's asking for a little love. And I actually thought that this was really, really sweet because I think about, in your own life, your individual set of girlfriends who are always hyping you up before you go into any big situation. I know I have friends like that in my life where we got to go for a promotion, anything like that. We always are like pumping each other up and psyching each other up for like, girl, you can do this. You got this. Like, you deserve this. Like, everything about that moment was very, very sweet to me. And it's one of the reasons I really like the way that they've done this particular show or this version of Ready to Love. So Ashley's asking for a pep talk. She wants to know what's going on. And she needs to get clarity before she goes and talks to Donald. Venetia, Tamika, and Shareese, Sadia is not over there, but she's basically, they're letting her know, like, girl, you need to trust your instinct, trust your gut. You are the prize. They're giving her all of the lovely sayings you give somebody before they go into something, just reminding them to like really trust your intuition and you know how it's supposed to feel. And if it doesn't feel right, it's okay. And it's time for you to go. Child, when I tell you Donald was out there sweating like a preacher, how you sweating, sir? You in the house. There's no air on. Somebody get this Murder Church fan. So the ladies learn her no trust your gut instinct, and she heads on to the room that Donald and her have been in so many times. They sit down. Of course, Ashley's dramatic, but she goes through a normal phase of breaking down how they've had a great time. They've really learned a lot from each other in terms of communication. He's shown up for her, and it didn't start out that way. She talks about the fact that they've had a lot more highs than lows, but they have had some highs and lows. She really likes getting to know him. He's become very dear to her, and she's really enjoying the time that they're spending together and how she feels and how he makes her feel when they're around. He giving her all them high swinging hugs, honey. And she does say that with the highs and lows, she is concerned because she doesn't want the lows to be something that are red flags that she should be paying attention to. And specifically, we kind of rally around the idea that she's looking for Donald to just be more communicative and that she's looking to be with somebody who is going to be a leader she can follow. So Ashley's a bit more traditional in that capacity. I have no problem with that. And that is a concern for her and maybe the thing that she's leaning from away the most. And I have to say that in this instance, Ashley really hit it on the nail on the head. Like, normally our girl can be very much all over the place, but she really was very focused on what was their issues. And we have to be honest, if you're watching this show, I know for me, it was a red flag a little bit for him not stepping up for her in the way he needed to. And sort of to gaslight her a little bit about how she felt when his friend was out of pocket. But I will say this, they're still very young. And I can appreciate that they're getting to know each other. And it's only been 6 weeks. It's only been 6 to 8 weeks since they've been in this situation, I think. So less than 2 months. And you're learning somebody's communication style. And I will say that we're in a place right now, I feel like in our society when it comes to dating, where people are so hyped to get rid of the next person because they didn't fit every single thing on your list. And even if they met 9, they didn't meet 10, and that was a problem. And it's kind of giving us a sense of unrealism about what's going to happen when you meet somebody else who's a complete stranger and you're learning to communicate and learn their communication style. And I think that's one of the things that does make Tamika right for the show in terms of being somebody who's been in a marriage, that's been in a marriage for 16 years. If that marriage is a good marriage, and she's also a matchmaker and working in this space. And I use the term matchmaker loosely because as y'all know, I don't know what her credentials are. But I feel like she has a solid understanding of the fact that you're merging your whole life with another person or two people together that are completely different personalities. We've got to get on the communication part, but we've got to have some grace that we give each other in figuring that out. Just like Ashley wanted grace from him when he was overthinking or overanalyzing her response to the friend in terms of how she was communicating with her hands and things like that. And was that seen as aggressive or her just being concerned and upset? And the same way that we got to give him a little grace on his end. Ashley says that she sees that there's room for growth. I do too. And I appreciate that they're going to work on the covering situation. And so she wants to continue to explore their situation and see if they can develop this friends into lovers thing. And so she chooses Don. All the couples are out in the living room, and Tamika's giving her last little pep talk, honey, before she ends this with them. She's happy with the couples that have chosen. She's happy with the people that have chosen themselves, Vernisha, and that she feels like they're in the beginning stages of something that could be beautiful if they're willing to put in the work and to bond, honey. So basically, she's saying my time is up, and the wine in the box has emptied, and Costco's is closed. So I need to head on out. But before I do, let's do one more celebratory dance because they continue to do this in the season, and we have this unnecessarily swaying around the room and Venetia dancing with the ladies and the men dancing with each other and Shareese and Eric Adams hugged up. It was cute for what it was. The way that this episode is cut up, I don't completely hate, but I also feel like it's a bit weird for us. It's very, very new in that capacity. But, everybody has chosen who they will make a movement. Ain't nobody actually going nowhere, honey. Everybody's staying in the same place. They just like, you can come visit me. And maybe that's what this needs to be renamed. So immediately we go into the reunion, y'all. So, they start off with the episode and they head us back into the reunion. And we realize it's 3 months later. I have to say that the episode was pretty decent. Before we go into the reunion, I just want to touch on the last parts of that. And I feel like, you know, it was good for what it was. I definitely think this is a refreshing take on Ready to Love, Make a Move. I mean, on Ready to Love as a franchise. I love that they drew down a lot into a smaller, compact series. I love that we have more closeness with the women involved. And even if they end up doing this with men, I think it's a really good concept. And I like the way that, this is going. I think the two shows on own would be nice for us to see. Let's head on into the reunion and the silliness that we had to endure for at least another 25 minutes. So here we are, y'all. It is 3 months later, and Tamika is still wearing that wig, although it is nicely combed out at this point and well coiffed. She is still in I'm taking melatonin on a regular phase, but it's okay. And, I have to say, I absolutely loved her earrings in this moment. I did also like her dress. She's very tall. They even joked about her being a supermodel. And, the skin was skinny, honey. She was glowing from head to toe. She looked like an Oscar. And I absolutely loved the dress on her. I do feel like I wish it was a bit firmer on her bodice and on the top part of her because I thought the color looked beautiful. And I love Tanika Ray's outfit. The jumpsuit was giving everything, honey. I love the straps, break every chain. I love the hair, the red. It was just a vibe going on. Both women were beautifully dressed. And, I love Tanika hosting these shows. I know people feel indifferent about her as a host. I love Black women getting their due, honey. And if you don't know about Miss Tanika Ray, she's been around for years as an entertainment reporter on multiple, Entertainment Tonight, E! News, all that kind of stuff. The girl has been out there doing the work. So I'm just happy to see her getting her propers. And, hosting these shows, I feel like she is starting to hold people a bit more accountable in terms of things. But she's also keeping it moving because we don't need to be here forever. And that being said, let's move on. So, they have to give a retrospect. And I have to say, shout out to set design. This is something that is definitely improving. I mean, they still got them furniture carpets and them tables from every other reunion for Ready to Love. But I have to say the decor in the background was improved. I will say that they definitely just need to hire an interior designer to give the theme. I would have loved for the inside of that room, although I will say the streetlights helped a little bit, to just give a little bit more New Orleans theme without it looking Party City-ish. But we like the progress, honey, because it used to just be real bad. It used to be the room store. So of course, they go back in a retrospect and ask ladies how they feel. They talk about the dynamic of this new show being different from the one that they were on, where it was all these multiple people. They've pared down to 4 people, and they've searched differently for the men and that they've gone to a different state. They talk about how the dynamic is different, and they ask the women, how do they feel being in this process? All of them say that they really enjoyed it. It was definitely a breath of fresh air. They talk about the fact that the women have also grown a sisterhood. They specifically also asked them about the fact that the dynamic of the show is vastly different in that there aren't 10 people competing for 85 other people. And they asked them how they felt about the process of dating the different men. They definitely said it was challenging, but it was unique. And Shareese, I think, summarizes it very well. She basically says that, look, this was a great opportunity for us to date multiple men without being judged, because society loves to judge women who don't want to just stick it out with a man a la Lori Harvey when it's not working anymore, and want to like explore their options. And so she's saying this was a way for us to do it in like an almost judgment-free zone. Sometimes we went out with multiple men in a week, sometimes multiple men in a day, and it really allowed us to pare down. It was a lot. It was challenging. And Venetia says, yes, everything was on us and it was difficult at times, but they really enjoyed the fact that they got to be the choosers in this situation and not just the one being chosen, which often happens in society a lot of times and on the show. But they say that the one thing that they genuinely loved about the show was that the women really got to know each other. And apparently half of the Board of Education of New Orleans, because that was the majority of the men that were picked out on the show. Do you remember that? There was a teacher, there was a superintendent, there was the school janitor. Everybody from New Orleans Department of Transportation tried out for this show. So they look back on the ladies growing not only in their relationships, but on their friendships in the house. Now, my firm belief is that the producers on Ready to Love wanted to get rid of this segment from the actual full reunion part so they could focus in on the ladies talking with the men. And I honestly love how they did this, because get the nonsense issue out the way. And the nonsense issue is this back and forth battle with Shareese and Zadia. So they essentially kind of get a little messy and say, well, oh, you ladies bonded and y'all grew a sisterhood. And they show the beginning stages of when they all were getting along. And to when it started to go sour between Shareese and Zadia. And we know most of the season was about the fact that Shareese initially revealed in their very first sit down with Tamika that Zadia was creeping, doing a walk of shame late into the house. And it was in fact because she was out with Cam, and Zadia lied about the fact that she was out with Cam when Tamika did a round table to ask ladies like, hey, who stayed in the house that night? And Zadia said, not out of the cat, and basically said that she was also inside. So they start to talk about that dynamic, and they ask the ladies, how did they feel about growing a sisterhood? Now, Ashley gives a very PR answer, which is what I think they initially wanted to hear said, and nobody kind of bats an eye, but she basically just says like, hey, we had our ups and downs, different personalities, but for the most part, we bonded. And as far as I know, post-show, they actually still do very much get along. At least they all get along with Venetia and Ashley, honey. So then they move on to Vern, and she kind of shakes her head. Shareese gives a very PR answer of like, hey, we're all different personalities, but we did get along. And of course, Zadia is making faces like, girl, what? Like, oh my God. Like, no, we had problems. Zadia, they're getting to it, girl. They're obviously keeping this for the messy part. Stay with the show. So Zadia keeps giving faces, and it's alluding to the fact that she's just not feeling how Shareese is trying to make it seem like they all got along peachy keen. She can't wait to pull out that victim card, honey. It's sitting on Monopoly deck somewhere. So fast forward, they go on commercial, they come back, and Zadia basically starts to call Shareese on her BS to say, hey, look, we didn't really get along because, as the clips are going to show, we kind of had issues and problems. She goes back into her spin about how she feels like she was the victim, that Shareese, singled her out and tried to attack her, from the get-go. And she feels like that's what she did the entire season. Shareese calls BS, honey, and so do I. When I tell you this is two sides of the same dysfunctional coin, which essentially is what the lady said, rather Tanika and Tamika end up saying later on in the situation. They really are more alike than they are not. They really are more alike than they are different. And I feel like that's the main issue that they have. But I have to say that while I was pissed off with Shareese for trying to make it seem like everything was, not her, like not really taking some accountability for how she interacts with people, Zadia get on my nerves the worst with this situation. We really were just seeing Zadia in DC again. Honey, like you have no accountability level for your involvement in all of these situations. And every interaction that you and Shareese had, you were also the other common denominator. And her inability to see that was wild. And they end up spending an immense amount of time on it, reminding her, but girl, you lied. So Zadia continues to say that, she didn't feel how Shareese did the whole thing on the couch. And, of course, not taking a zero accountability about where she led in that situation and how their disagreement went down. Even when Shareese kind of said that she was over it, although we'll talk about that in a minute. To me, there are no victims in this situation. Her and Shareese are equally annoying, and they're equally problematic. Zadia is just more passive aggressive than her. And I have to say, watching this scene really took me back to the Zadia that we knew from DC, who took zero accountability during that reunion as well. With multiple women sitting on one side, we're talking about how they experienced her in a situation and how they felt like she bullied them. And she proceeded to walk off the stage rather than hear what they had to say because she did not want to face that. Of course, we know she had to own up to the fact that she did the same thing when it came to the guy that she was seeing on the show, who she ended up picking another woman, and how she put her hands on him. And to be honest with you, I've always felt like Zadia needed to be kicked off of DC because that would have never been acceptable if that had been a man. If a man had put his hands on a woman in DC, he would have been gone. And she should have been gone too. No matter if it was a mush or whatever, it still was inappropriate to put any type of hands on anyone. And it took them having to call her out on that for her to take some accountability because she continued to still make it seem as if she was a victim to Dante. It's just not there for her, sis. So Zadia stays delusional in her DC energy and age. She keeps saying Shareese is the problem only and that Shareese is too aggressive. And Shareese responds in an aggressive manner. But Zadia is very passive aggressive for how she deals with Shareese. And we're not going to act like she wasn't on her get back vibe. But let's talk about how Shareese responded. Now, one thing I did agree with Zadia about is the way in which Shareese responds to certain things. Sometimes you can't start off every disagreement with like, that's BS. Now, what Shareese was right about and what Tamika and Tanika called Zadia on is lying, and that Shareese had a right to be upset that once she revealed whatever she said, Zadia needed to own up to it. Of course, Zadia then goes on to say she's a grown woman, and when they were asking, and Tamika's like, well, why did you lie to me when I asked what was everybody at home that night? And she's like, well, I'm a grown woman and I pay my own bills. But girl, if you were grown, why didn't you stand on business and stay in that grown woman energy? When they asked you instead of repeating a lie like a 5-year-old and saying, I don't know who did it. Because you genuinely could have just said, hey, I was out enjoying myself. I stayed out pretty late. And I don't think it was appreciated by Shareese. And she had to open the door for me in the morning because that's exactly what happened. But you made it seem like this lady was crazy when she said you went out by lying to Tamika and saying you never went anywhere. And even Ashley was on the couch like, what? So, you know, Shareese's response to some of the after stuff, even with the LJ thing, she said she wasn't happy with the way that it was implied. And she said, LJ not her type, honey. He's too short. And I forgot what the other thing was. I just was stuck on short as to why they would never work out. It may be impossible, honey, but Shareese let you know straight up down. Me and that man got nothing going on. Either way, I will say that I do think Shareese needs to work on her anger issues. And Ashley also stated that next to her, and Shareese did not take that in. Shareese needs to learn how to have a proportional response to people interacting with her. It's fine to be upset with what you heard just now or not be okay with it. Always blasting off is not necessary. And then acting like it's that once you're over it, the other person needs to be over it is also extremely childish when you're headed towards your 50s. It just is. Point blank period. You need to learn how to have active communication with people and you need to learn how to work on your conflict resolution. And so I do think that those are areas in where Shareese needs to grow, and if not, they're going to come up even when you're in relationships. And that could be one of the reasons that you're single. And you need to work on that kind of stuff. But I will say this. I would have been pissed if somebody was lying on me too when you know that this actively happened. And it made no sense because the cameras was going to catch it anyway. What I did not also like was that Shareese kind of turned it on the whole group about the Grace situation. Now, I do think at least on the show from what we saw, except for one scene, I feel like Ashley and Venetia normally stayed quiet when they were going through their thing, even when Tamika was interviewing them, when she would sit the whole group down about what happened in their interactions. They mostly stayed quiet and let them say their piece. Now, it was one time where Venetia did chime in, and I didn't think it was necessary, but I do think Tamika asked them about it, and then they chimed in. I do not like that, Shareese, again, just kind of unproportionately responded to the situation by dragging all the ladies into it when I think they may have been supportive on the back end. Like I said, they all seem to still be cool, at least Ashley and Venetia and Shareese are cool, as well as Ashley and Zadia and Venetia. So I do think that part of this is Shareese taking accountability for where she shows up in the conflict herself and learning how to grow from that situation. Ultimately, I'm glad they got this part of the segment out the way because I did not want to see this for a full hour going back and forth and back and forth as this ridiculous tennis ball of anxiety and anger. So I'm glad they got this segment done. This was the end of the episode, just them going back and forth, and ultimately Shareese saying she gonna walk off just to be on stage anyway later. It looks like next week is gonna be really spicy because the men are back. Some people are acting sassy, but some people are also possibly calling people to the carpet about their behavior. Y'all let me know what y'all thought about this season now that it's ended, child. It is almost over. We got one more to go. And what did you think about the beginning part of the reunion? Are you for Venetia? Are you leaving Tigger? Are you for Ashley picking Don and all his sweat and preacher energy? And what did you think about the Zadia and Shareese debacle? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.